Thank you for joining us again on Wealth Plan TV. I hope you're enjoying the series. Today we're looking at accumulation again, and once again we're joined by Serge Gianpetroni from SGI Consulting Group. Serge, thank you very much for joining us again.
It's my pleasure.
How did you like the last bit?
It was quite interesting, and I hope your viewers got a lot out of it.
What I wanted to do was revisit managed funds. So what I want to talk about is just the structure of a managed fund, how it works, and then we'll talk a little bit about super. Can you just give us an insight of what a managed fund actually is?
Yes, depending on the type of managed funds that you wish to invest in, whether it's a managed fund that deals in property or a managed fund that deals with shares, the concept is the same. The fund manager will accumulate within that fund a range of investments. If it's in a share market, obviously it will be shares that they deem appropriate based on the way that they invest money.
Now, a managed fund itself is a structure. Does it have trustees? How is your money protected? If you're lobbing some bloke money who says he can manage it, how are you protected?
The managed fund, the way that most financial planners would be dealing with, are the funds that are actually being licensed through the various government bodies, such as ASIC. They have to meet a number of key requirements in order to provide that product to market. So you are protected in a sense that the structure behind it is very strong and legally solid.
So there's a trustee structure there?
Correct, it is.
And your money is always your money, or can it be spent on somebody, can it flow to another investor? Or is
no,
it
can't. You have got entitlements to your allocation in that fund, and that is yours.
We've touched on this before, but managed funds can provide cash,
Yes.
100% cash if somebody wanted.
Yes, some managed funds actually deal solely in cash.
Might be an expensive way of getting cash, but nevertheless. And just bonds?
And bonds the same way. Bonds for the majority of people are best obtained through managed fund structure. You can obtain bonds differently, but usually you have to be a pretty sizable investor to be able to access the bonds directly.
So we can get just shares, international?
You have property, international property. You've got a breakdown in the various classes of shares. You've got resources, industrials, technology, technology global, technology local, Asian shares, the so-called BRICS.
Yep. That's Brazil, Russia,
correct.
India and China.
Yep. So the variety of investment options or opportunities out there are very, very broad.
So the point then is that somebody who put their money in a managed fund would be doing so in the hope to accumulate their money over time by leveraging that manager's expertise. Would that be a fair definition, do you think?
I think you hit the nail right on the head.
Okay. Now, from there, let's talk about super. What is super in relation to a managed fund?
Superannuation, in most cases, is just simply a managed fund with different rules applied to it.
Okay, so what you're saying then is something we call superannuation has exactly the same structure as the one we've just discussed with a managed fund. It's managed in the same way with similar expenses?
Correct. The management of the investments are identical in most cases. If you want to use, let's say, a managed fund, and let's use that as an example, Vanguard, it's certainly not a recommendation, but Vanguard Australian shares can be accessed outside of superannuation as it can be accessed inside of superannuation. What changes is only one thing, which are the taxation rules and restriction of access rules.
Okay, that's good. So I'm coming back to this because it's important to my mind. I hear people saying, should I take my money out of super and put it in cash? Super is an environment which has tax advantages.
Correct.
And as we're using a managed fund type of structure, they can put their money in super, in cash, within super.
Very much so. And this is where people just don't, in most cases I should say, don't really understand superannuation and the flexibility and the options that they have in there. They are very, very broad. And what you can do outside of superannuation, in most cases, you can do inside of superannuation.
The difference being the sole purpose test.
Correct.
Yeah. So can you just briefly, sorry, before we explain the sole purpose test, we've spoken about different tax structures and legal structures and restrictions on use implied by legislation. Can you just very briefly run through what those are, and then we'll come back to the sole purpose test.
Okay, well, superannuation basically has some very big tax advantages. Predominantly, you're taxed at 15 cents in a dollar for any income that the fund earns. You're also only taxed at 10 cents in a dollar for any capital gains that the fund incurs. Whereas outside of superannuation, everything is taxed at your marginal tax rate.
Yeah.
Okay, and yes, we are still talking about managed funds.
Yes.
Okay? The government has provided those incentives, those tax incentives, for your long-term accumulation.
Yes.
Okay, and that concept has been reinforced time and time again. And the incentives are there for you to put money in there, but not to use it on a daily basis as you would, let's say, you could potentially do outside of superannuation.
Okay, so what the government has said is, we'll give you these tax advantages if you use it for one purpose only.
Correct.
That's the sole purpose test. And that's saying, you put your money in there, but you can only have it when you retire, when you die, or when you're disabled.
That's right. And there's a short list, and I will emphasize a short list of release conditions that must be met in order to be able to access those funds.
Yeah, that's fine. So if you were saving for, or not saving, if you were accumulating for retirement, which structure would you use? Given that managed fund and super are basically the same, would you invest your money outside of superannuation or within the superannuation environment?
For long-term investments, for the ones that are solely for your retirement component, definitely superannuation has got the better accumulation capacity.
So you create more money in long-term by using that environment?
You're going to be tax list.
Yeah. So if you wanted to save for a swimming pool, where would you invest your money?
Certainly not superannuation.
Because you'd never get it out. Yeah.
Unless you happen to be 55 or so, and you're going to be pretty much accessing your money in another 5 years or so.
Okay, this is another episode.
Correct. So, no, to answer your question, no, you wouldn't put in your superannuation.
So
you'd be looking at other options.
Okay. That's the last we'll be dealing with accumulation in this series. You'll have to watch our next series to get the next gripping instalment. We'll cut to a break and we'll see you afterwards.